Hey everyone, welcome back to TCG. Today's going to be my second ever Magic the Gathering Commander deck profile. Today is going to be on the Prismatic Bridge. It is a very unique take on the deck as well. So the Prismatic Bridge has a creature on the other side of the card, so it is a legal commander, but this is the side that we're going to be playing. At the beginning of your upkeep, you reveal cards until you hit either a creature or a planeswalker. You put that card into play and bottom the rest. So to get into it, we're going to reveal what this deck really is, unless you've read the title, I guess. But some tokens you need are your Construct token, your Thopter token, your Beast token, your 6/6 Beast artifact token specifically, and your Servo token. So these are all going to be made pretty frequently in the deck. Oh, right. Your energy reserve as well. You're definitely going to need that. So, this deck is energy. The idea of the deck is to produce energy and then use that energy to either combo off or control the game state and just win by outgrinding everyone else and just putting a lot of creatures on the board. So, either one of those options works great in the deck and can close out games. So, to start off, I'm just going to go through the creatures that are primarily played only to produce energy, as well as some artifacts and enchantments that are played for energy. So, as you've already seen, Minister of Inquiries enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. He also says pay an energy and tap it to mill someone for 3. This can be used at instant speed, although it will have the summoning sickness apply because it's a tap ability. So if you play against someone that goes like Worldly Tutor, you can mill that card they just put on top. It doesn't come up too often. You really just play it because it's a 1-drop that makes 2 energy. Thriving Turtle, it's the same deal. You play it because 1-drop that makes 2 energy. Gonti's Machinations, that's where we get into like some really neat, interesting cards here because when it enters, you don't really do anything. When you lose life for the first time of a turn, you get an energy. And for 2 energy and sacrificing it, each opponent loses 3 life. You gain life equal to the lost life. So in a 4-pod, this gets you 9 life. But you really play it for this first ability because when you play it with like your shock lands and your fetch lands, you're guaranteed to get at least 1 energy from this card per go around the table. Next up, Sage of Shadow's Claim. We're just playing this because it enters the battlefield as a 2-drop that gets you 3 energy. Longtusk Cub doesn't do anything when it enters the battlefield. However, you can use this card in a very political manner. When it deals damage, you get 2 energy. But for 2 energy, you can put a 1/1 counter permanently on the Longtusk Cub. So what this means is when you declare Longtusk Cub as an attacker, you can, whoever you're swinging at, you can tell them, if you don't declare a blocker, I will not pump the Longtusk Cub, you'll only take 2. However, if you block my Longtusk Cub, I'm going to pump him to kill your blocker. So what's really neat about this is your opponents, of course, aren't going to want to have their creatures skilled unless they're just like chump blocking you. But otherwise, they're just going to let this get through and hit them for 2, and you'll get 2 energy. Next up is Shielded Aether Thief. It is a 0/4 for 2 energy that you can flash in. When it blocks, you get an energy. So you flash it in when you declare blockers. And what really keeps this card in this deck is by tapping it 3 energy, you draw a card. That's what's really big about this card, is it's an extra draw. But the extra ability isn't bad at all either. Aether Theorist. It's kind of the reverse of Thief. For entering the battlefield, it gets 3 energy, and its pay ability is 1 energy, scry a card. All around, very good card. Just like this, it's a Birds of Paradise for energy. It enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy, and then you can pay 1 and tap it to get 1 mana of any color. Winding Constrictor is an honorary energy producer. Whenever you get a counter, you get 1 extra. Glassblower's Puzzle Knot. It enters the battlefield, you scry 2, get 2 energy, and then Tuna Blue, sacrifice it, scry 2, get 2 energy. Eddie Trailhawk. This one you mostly only play because it enters the battlefield, gets 2 energy. Its other ability is that when it attacks, if you pay 1 energy, you give another creature flying. So for example, you can give your Longtusk Cub flying just to make sure its attack gets through and produces the 2 energy, or to make sure its attack gets through and kills someone. Rogue Refiner, 2 energy, draw a card. Or when it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy, draw a card. I know earlier I mentioned 4 2 energy, draw a card, but this one's different. Aether Torch Renegade, 3 mana cost. It makes the most mana for the lowest, or makes the most energy for the lowest mana. 3 energy, 4 mana. And then its second ability is actually pretty decent. 2 energy and tapping it, deal 1 to any creature. So you can get rid of your opponent's Birds of Paradise, you can get rid of their Esper Sentinels. Just like it hits like all those like mana dorks and utility creatures, so it's really useful. 8 energy, it can machine gun someone for 6 damage. That ability doesn't come up too often, but the first and second abilities are really good. Consulate Turret gets you 1 energy by tapping it, or deals 2 to a player by paying 3 energy and tapping it. You really only use it for this first ability. At first it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but if every round around the table you're tapping this, producing an extra energy, eventually it adds up, and there's other ways in the deck to untap it, such as Janjeet Sanctuary, which says by paying 2, you can untap or tap a target creature or artifact. So of course you're not going to be using this to untap this, but there are other cards in the deck to untap it fairly easy. Electrostatic Pummeler, or as I like to call it, a very important 1/1. It enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy. For 3 energy, you get X plus X plus X on this creature. It's where X is its power. So that means if you pay 3 when it's a 1/1, it becomes a 2/2 because its power is 1. But now if you pay 3 after that, its power is 2. So it gets plus X, which is going to be 2, making it a 4/4. And then if you do it a third time, its power, of course, like I mentioned now, is 4. So it becomes an 8/8, a 16/16, 32/32. You get the idea. And it functions identically with the Eddy Trailhawk as you're doing with Long Tusk Cup. So you use your Eddy Trailhawk to give your Electrostatic Pummeler flying, just like you can with your Long Tusk Cup. Architect of the Untamed has landfall, get an energy, and 8 energy, you make a 6/6 beast artifact. Aether Sphere Harvester enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy, 1 energy to give it lifelink, and it crews for 1, and it's a 3/5 flyer when it's crewed. This one is Atrix and Nev. This one doesn't directly give you energy, but if you get tokens, which you'll see in a minute, you double that amount of tokens. It's going to be very important later on. Consulate Surveillance. This card is really good against Boros or Voltron decks because when it enters the battlefield, you will get 4 energy. For 2 energy, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you this turn by source of your choice. Now, you might be noticing something. Nowhere on this card does it say target. This gets around Shroud, it gets around being protected from white, and it gets around hexproof. This is actually something I looked up. I even checked the Wizards official site because I was like, maybe this card's text is weird or got ruled that it doesn't get around hexproof. But even on Wizards site, on the page for this card, it says that hexproof, it gets around hexproof. So if you're playing against a Voltron player and they have like their hexproof, vigilance, double strike, 25/25 flyer, and they swing at you for game, you go, no, I'm just gonna pay 2 energy. I'm not gonna take damage. It's so good because it just shuts off those sorts of decks. And if they don't have enchantment removal, they just can't get rid of this, and they just can't really do anything against you. It's such a good card. Pema Aetherseer, that when it enters the battlefield, you get energy equal to the greatest power among your creatures. So for example, if this is the only creature you have, its power is 3, so you get 3 energy, but there are much bigger creatures in this deck, so usually you'll get a bit more. And this other ability is very helpful. For 3 energy, it forces a target creature to block this turn if able. So say it's your opponent's turn. They swing in on another opponent. You can force that second opponent, the defending player, to block with a creature that you want to get rid of. So even if both players make a deal, like, hey, can I swing at you because I want to draw a card and don't block, and they're like, yeah, sure. Then they swing, you go, okay, 3 energy, you're actually going to block now. So now your creature dies and you don't get that card draw. It's a really neat card. You of course also use it on your turn, so that way when you swing you can force something that you want to get rid of to block. Very flexible card in that nature. Aether Stormrock, this is actually going to be one of the better cards in the deck. It's actually kind of a combo piece even. If it enters the battlefield or another creature enters your battlefield, you get an energy. The last ability is not super important, but it's a 3/3 flyer. Lightning Runner. This is actually one of the ways that the deck can win. It has double strike and haste that when it attacks, you get 2 energy. For 8 energy, you get to take a second combat, untapping all your creatures. What's really cool here is there's ways to just clear out boards very easily, and then you just swing in for game. Multiform Wonder, super flexible card that enters the battlefield 3 energy, and then for 1 energy, you can give it Flying, Vigilance, or Lifelink, and you can do 3 energy, of course, to give it all 3 of those abilities. Also, for 1 energy, +2, -2, or -2, +2. So, say it's your turn after you've cast this creature. You go to swing with him, but before you swing, you give him all these abilities. Now he has Flying, Lifelink, and Vigilance. And then you give him +2, -2, so now he's a 5/1. Flying, Vigilance, Lifelink. You swing 5/1 in the air, you get 5 life. Then go to your opponent's turn. If they attempt to swing on you, you go 1 energy, give him -2, +2, so now he's a 1/5. Say they go, okay, I'll make my creature into like a say it's like a 6/3 now. They do some kind of shenanigans. Now they have a 6/3. You do it again, so now it's a 0/7. They do something to make it stronger than 7. You do it again, now it is a 0/9. They make it over 9 somehow. You do it again, now it's a 0/11. You can block with this thing, pretty much block it into anything as long as you have the energy to pay. And of course, you can also make it a very good swing by, like I mentioned, making it a 5/1 with Flying, Vigilance, or Lifelink. You don't even have to make it a 5/1. You can just make it a 3/3 with Flying, Vigilance, Lifelink. It's a very good card. Aethertide Whale enters the battlefield, 6 energy. Very simple reason to play it. However, for 4 energy, instant speed, you can turn to your hand. If you have nothing else to play that turn, you can just put it back in your hand, recast it, netting yourself 2 energy along the way. If there's a board wipe, put it back in your hand, recast it next turn. Things like that. Of course, it can evade things like Swords of Plowshare by, once again, 4 energy, put it back in your hand. Very good card. Finally, the final like generic, just like energy producing card, Aether Windbasker, has Trample. If it enters the battlefield or attacks, you get an energy. 1 energy, it gets +1/+1 for the turn. This is another card you can just end games with because of Eddie Trailhawk being able to give it flying. Also, when it swings, just like I mentioned with Pummeler and Long Tusk Cub, you can tell them, hey, don't block. I won't make it bigger than it already is. So you'll take the 7. If you do block, I'm going to make this thing extremely big, kill all your creatures. You're still going to take the trample damage. So it's another like political tool if you want to use it in that sense. But also, if you just want to close a game out with it, you can close a game out with it. So next up is some removal. Harness Lightning. You choose any target creature, you immediately get 3 energy, then you may deal that creature any amount of damage as long as you pay 1 energy into it. So you pay 1 energy, deal 1 damage, 2 energy, 2 damage, 3 energy, 3 damage. It's also an instant speed card. Die Young, it's pretty much the same thing as Harness Lightning, except instead of dealing damage to it, it does -1/-1 to it, and you only get 2 energy, and it's sorcery speed. Confiscation Coop, this targets any artifact or creature, gives you 4 energy. You may pay any amount of energy equal to the target's converted mana cost to take that card permanently. Next up, 2 of my favorite cards in the deck. First up is Demon of Dark Schemes. It's a flyer that when it enters the battlefield does -2/-2 to all other creatures. Then, when another creature dies, you get an energy. And for 2 and a black, instant speed, 4 energy, put any target creature from any graveyard onto your battlefield tapped. So you use this to get like if you want to take your opponent's like Esper Sentinels, or you want to take their just pretty much anything that you want to take from them, or if you have like a combo piece in your grave that you want back, or like a big stompy creature like the Aetherwind Basker, you can use it for just about anything. So a very flexible card. And next up is the Aether Squall Ancient. Is a flyer that gets you 3 energy at your upkeep, and then for 8 energy, it puts all creatures back except itself, back to the owner's hands. So what's really cool about this and this is you can loop these back and forth. You can cast this to minus everything, and then 8 energy, putting this card back in your hand. If your opponent's trying to like rebuild their boards, then you just do the same thing. You cast this -2/-2 to everything, then do this, putting this back in your hand. So anything that doesn't die to this goes back to their hand, and then anything that didn't die to this, or anything that did die to this, gets you energy. You can reanimate. Say like they kill your Aether Skull, they go, okay, I'm done with this. Like my friends call it the stupid whale lock. If they kill your Aether Skull Ancient, the next turn when you cast this guy down, you do your 2 black, get him back into play tapped, use his ability, bounce everything. It's a really neat lock that can oftentimes actually close out games. But there's also this combo. The Aether Skull bouncing all creatures leaves everyone open, so you can swing this in at someone, get your 2 energy, pay 8 energy for an extra combat, and then just keep doing that over and over, taking your extra combats over and over until you just kill someone. Next up are some energy cards that I have not mentioned yet. These cards are actually really important to the deck. The Aether Swooper, Aether Chaser, Aether Poisoner, and Aether Inspector. Let's get those mana costs out there. These are all 1 and their color. This is 3 in its color. They enter the battlefield. They each produce 2 energy. And as you can see, they all have a different ability at the top: Flying, First Strike, Death Touch, and Vigilance. What's really important, whenever they attack for 2 energy, you get to make a servo. And these little servo tokens are going to be very important for our combos. Next up is just some draw power here. Glint Sleeve Siphoner enters the battlefield or attacks, also has menace, but it enters the battlefield or attacks, you make an energy. At the beginning of your upkeep, you pay 2 energy to Phyrexian Arena, lose a life, draw a card. Era of Innovation, Artifact or Artificer enters the battlefield for 1 mana, 2 energy. And then you can pay 6 energy, sacrifice the Era of Innovation, get 3 cards. Glimmer of Genius, instant speed, scry 2, draw 2, get 2 energy. Live Fast, draw 2, lose 2 life, get 2 energy. And then just an Esper Sentinel, just a generic little draw guy. Next up is some of our ramp. Attune with Aether, search your library for basic, put it in your hand, get 2 energy. Birds of Paradise, taps for any color. Farseek gets any land except a forest. Rampant Growth gets any basic. 3 visits, get any forest into play untapped. Noble Hierarch, tap for most of the colors you need. And Soul Ring. Alright, moving on is some combos we got here. Got Limdol's Volt and Worldly Tutor. These 2 cards can put your combos on top of your library, so that Rainbow Bridge will, or Prismatic Bridge will put that creature into play next turn. And in Limdol's Volt's case, it also dictates what you're going to draw. So say you put some really good creature on top, that card comes into play on your upkeep because of your Prismatic Bridge. But underneath that, you can put something else that you want to draw into. So you go Prismatic Bridge, put whatever's on top from the Limdol's Volt, and then draw for turn the second card that you stacked on your deck with the Limdol's Volt. These cards are just for getting into your combos. Kuldotha, Forge Master. He says sacrifice any 3 artifacts to get your an artifact that you want out of your deck into play. And the thing with this is you're never actually losing artifacts, because the reason that we play those Aether creatures I mentioned a moment ago is they all produce an artifact creature when they attack. So these guys, they all make your servo tokens, and these are what you're usually sacrificing to your Kuldotha Forge Master. The servo tokens that these produce, of course, not themselves, so they're not artifacts. Birthing Pod. This one is sacrifice a creature, search your library for a creature with 1 higher converted mana cost, and put that card into play. Your artifact creatures have a cost of 0. So if you sack a servo that you made off your Aether Inspector, you can get a Minister of Inquiries, or of course, even better, you can get your Birds of Paradise. But this just ladders into more creatures that when they enter the battlefield, they'll make energy, or they'll ladder into your creatures that help you combo and storm off the game. Oswald Fiddlebender, it's Birthing Pod, but for artifacts. Same thing applies here. If Aether Inspector makes his servo, of course it's an artifact, so Fiddlebender can sacrifice your artifact, and it can get you, like, you can grab your Soul Ring off of it. And because it's 1 convert mana cost higher. Just these 3 cards help you dig out your combos or like ATBs that you want. And now let's actually talk about some combos. First off is Time Sieve Thopter Assembly. Time Sieve says sacrifice 5 artifacts, take an extra turn after this one. And as we've already covered, of course, you're usually just not actually sacrificing any artifacts, you're just sacrificing your servo tokens. Thopter Assembly, if it's the only Thopter you control at your upkeep, it goes back to your hand and makes 5 Thopters. 5. My camera's like really low to the table. You make your 5 Thopters, and now you have your 5 artifacts to stack to your Time Sieve to take an extra turn. You recast your Thopter Assembly, you take your extra turn, your upkeep happens, he goes to your hand, and makes 5 more Thopters stacked to the Time Sieve. Keep in mind, every upkeep, you're also triggering your Prismatic Bridge, putting another creature into play. And there's also, of course, just a bunch of ways to set up your Time Sieve. So sometimes, like, you don't even need the Thopter Assembly. Time Sieve will just be live from making tokens. Next up is Urza, Lord High Artificer. He enters the battlefield, he makes a construct. He makes all your artifacts tap for blue, and for 5 mana, you can shuffle your library, exile top of your library, you can cast that card. Once again, you're never actually tapping your own artifact, you're just tapping down your artifact creatures. This is a really cool combo. On Aetherworks Marvel and Unwinding Clock, Aetherworks Marvel says when a permanent you control is put into the grave, get an energy. For 6 energy and tapping it, you look at the top 6 of your library, cast one of those cards for free, bottom the rest. So, of course, the problem being is going to be tapped. Unwinding Clock will, on every upkeep, untap it. So, you do your Aetherworks on your turn. It untaps. Because you go to your opponent's turn, let's say. Now you can do Aetherworks on their turn. They take their turn, they pass to the next player, it untaps. So, basically, you get to do Aetherworks on every player's turn with this 2-card combo, netting you an extra card, and maybe even getting you some extra energy along the way. Gonti's Aetherheart. This card is really powerful in this deck. It enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. An artifact enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. Keep that in mind in the case of making these servos, since they are artifacts. 8 energy, you exile it, and you take an extra turn. Now, I want to say, do not cast this if you don't already have that 8 energy. Because if this enters the battlefield and you have less than 8 energy, someone's going to try to hate this thing off the table before you can use it. You do want to make sure it stays on the table as long as you can possibly keep it, though, because this ability to make 2 energy helps you go infinite with things like Whirler Virtuoso and Decoction Module, which is the full infinite combo. Or, it's not the full infinite combo, but it makes you infinite Thopters, and then you can use your infinite Thopters to Urza. So, I'll explain the combo. Whirler Virtuoso, when it enters the battlefield, he'll make 3 energy. For 3 energy, you make a 1/1 Thopter artifact creature. Decoction Module reads, when a creature enters the battlefield, target, which is of course a Thopter artifact creature, you get 1 energy. For 4 mana, you can tap this and bounce a creature you control to your hand. So that helps you, if someone tries to like remove your creature, you can just put it back in your hand and use it later. And then going back to the Gonti's Aetherheart, an artifact enters your battlefield, which of course Thopters are, you get 2 energy. So you pay your 3 energy, you go to 0, you make a Thopter. This sees an artifact enters the battlefield, this sees a creature enter the battlefield. You get 1 energy, and then you get an additional 2 from here, getting 3. Getting your 3 energy right back. So if you have Urza in play, you make infinite Thopters, and you dig out your whole deck. If you have Panharmonicon in play, though, you also have infinite energy, because these trigger additional times, getting you more than 3 energy. So each time you net, I believe, an additional 3 energy. This combo can also be done with a Winding Constrictor. because Winding Restrictor will get you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 energy every time you spend 3 to make a Thopter. So that way you just have a bunch of ways to go infinite with that. So those are your infinite artifacts, infinite Thopters. And of course, like, you make your infinite Thopters with your Whirler combos. You have your Time Sieve. And then if you really want to, of course, you can crack your Gonti, take an extra turn, and then using your infinite Thopters, kill everyone. Finally, just some just some extra tech cards. Underworld Breach. Some of my friends said the biggest weakness of this deck is if you get rid of the Demon of Dark Deeds, I have no way of getting creatures out of my grave to do my combos. So Underworld Breach kind of fixes that. Sensei's Dividing Top lets me see the top 3 of my library. So if I see a creature I want, underneath a creature I don't want, I can just move the creature I want more to the top. And then Scroll Rack is kind of like a really cool hand-fixing card. So let's say I have 3 lands in my hand, and I only need 1 to play my land for next turn. I can do Scroll Rack and draw 2, put the 2 lands that I don't want on top of my library afterwards. Prismatic Bridge will trigger. It will reveal those 2 lands I just put on top, and then I'll say the next card down is a creature. I will put that creature into play and bottom those 2 lands that I didn't want. They're very helpful 3 cards, and it just helps the deck keep like winding away and getting to its combos or getting to its boards that either can lock out the game or combo into infinite artifacts, infinite energy, and a bunch of blue mana. And then finally is the land base. I'm waiting for my fetch lands and shock lands to all come in the mail, so in the meantime, I have 2 plains, 2 mountain, 3 swamp, 5 island, and a lot of forest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 forest. Plains and mountain, as you can tell, are the least important colors in the deck, whereas it goes upward after that. You want to play a little more swamp, a little more island, a little more forest. And then moving on to the multicolor lands I do have at the moment. Overgrown Tomb, Arid Mesa, Sacred Foundry, Temple Garden, Windswept Heath, Steam Vents, Wooded Foothills, Scalding Tarn, Stomping Grounds. These are all just the ones I have at the moment. Again, I'm waiting for the rest of them to come in the mail. Once they do come in, I'm going to be cutting the basic lands down to 2 of everything besides forest, 4 forest, 2 of all the other basics. Spectator Seeding, and then some fetch lands, Evolving Wilds and Fabled Passage. Keep in mind this triggers your Aetherworks Marvel, so you sack your Evolving Wilds, a permanent went to your grave so you get an energy. Aether Hub, this taps for any color as long as you can pay 1 energy into it, and when it enters the battlefield you get that 1 energy. So it's essentially a second command tower. And then just these pathways. This one's the red-blue, this is the white-black, and this is the red-green. So that is my deck profile for Prismatic Bridge Energy. Let me know what you thought about it. A lot of people I played this deck against really love this concept and have been asking to see the full list, and have given me ideas on how to build this deck into what it is right now. It's definitely a lot of fun to play, and it subverts expectations, because typically when you play a Prismatic Bridge deck, people are expecting you to be playing Blightsteel Colossus, Darksteel Colossus, and just Eldrazi's, and just going to big creatures. I use this to get extra enter the battlefield triggers by putting creatures from my deck into play and getting a lot of energy. And then from there, of course, you can use your energy, your creatures, your everything that Bridge randomly gets you to build up your combos or build up your control boards. I like this deck a lot. It feels very original to something that I've made myself. I couldn't find EDH rec help or anything to build this. When I did ask people for ideas, a lot of people told me like, hey, there's only like 70 energy cards. You can't actually make an energy deck in Commander. So it's really cool to see that I was able to do that despite like having like no one in my corner about this. Just so many people said like, oh no, you can't actually do energy in Commander. It's just not enough cards. But here we are. This deck's actually pretty powerful, and the combos are really strong. And if you haven't seen how this deck works yet, then usually the combo will just take off until you like it's too late. Like you'll realize, oh, this is like what the deck's doing, and I can't stop it because now it's too late because I didn't know where to use the counter spells. So yeah, really great deck. Let me know what you thought about it or any questions that you want to know, and I'll try to answer them, of course. If you like this video, make sure to like it, give it a little subscription to the channel, and that's about it, guys. Catch you guys next time.